Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Invisible Condition. It's not all in your head, by the way. I'm your host, Jeff Pearson. We created this show, by the way, for you. We created it for you because we want everyone with an invisible condition, no matter what that condition is, to know that you have a voice, you have a community, and you are not alone. And so that's what we're here for. And speaking of not alone, I have an amazing guest with me today, Dr. Jamie Wright. I'm going to bring her on right now. Dr. Jamie Wright, hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
I am so excited that you're here. I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness because I don't know, I've been watching for a year. I've been seeing stuff on like Instagram from you and stuff, and like you've been doing some crazy stuff over the last year or so, and I mean before that too, obviously, but it's pretty awesome, and I want to so I wanted everybody to know who you are and get this out there. So please tell us about yourself, your family, where where are you, where are you from, all the good stuff.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot. So, hi, I'm Jamie. I am originally from North Texas. My parents and two older sisters, so I'm the baby of the family. We kind of moved around a bit, settled in a small town near Dallas, and I, just a little bit of background. Like I went to school near there, graduated valedictorian, went on to undergrad in molecular biology and with a minor in neurobiology. And then, I guess the big topic today is I then went on to do my MD and PhD, and the story behind that is also a big one.
Yeah. Wait, so you went, okay, valedictorian, that's not surprising. Now the molecular biology as a major in college, okay, I don't even know what either of those, like, I know what biology means and I know what molecules are, but like that whole major just blows my mind. So, and then you moved on and you did a double, is that what you said? Like,
Yes.
MD, PhD?
Yes. MD, PhD. So, molecular biology, I refer to it as the biology of small stuff.
Yeah.
And okay. My thinking between picking that major, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I went into college. And I figured, well, I really like science. And if we understand the building blocks, like the smallest building blocks of science, which is molecules, then, my naive wishful thinking was like, then we can understand everything.
Sure.
It's as simple as that.
Why not? Yeah, what could possibly, be more complicated? Yeah.
Exactly.
And then you finished that, and then you went right into your double huge degree. Good Lord. Okay. That's a lot. Okay. So MD, PhD. So what's the PhD in?
So my PhD is actually it's biomedical research is the overarching topic. I did my PhD in a medical genetics lab studying rare, trying to make it more understandable, studying kind of rare genes or gene mutations that lead to diseases of the blood vessels, both in the brain and in the heart and the rest of the body.
Wow. Holy smokes. So did that, so did you always know you wanted to go the because you were at one time you were working on the neurologist, doctor of neurology, right?
So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So is that where you kind of always wanted to go based on like having hydrocephalus? Did that kind of like, oh, I want to explore this, or was that something different?
So, growing up, I was always kind of a pretty studious, nerdy kid. And I mean, I remember even in elementary school, my teachers joked that I was going to be a neurosurgeon someday, which I now find really ironic because I was saw a neurosurgeon every year for hydrocephalus.
Right.
But I really never saw myself being a doctor or going to medical school. In college, a lot of my, being a molecular biology major, all my friends were pre-med, but I'd had some, as many of us have with chronic illness and invisible conditions, I had some challenging interactions with doctors. And my thought was kind of, I don't know what happens to people during med school, but I don't want it to happen to me.
Okay.
I know. No.
All right.
But
That's
then,
fair.
long story short, thankfully I got into this great research fellowship at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas my junior year of college. And at the end of my junior year of college, during that time, I did some really fun research on perinatal brain injury. So brain injury that leads to cerebral palsy and can also lead to hydrocephalus. And I worked with this amazing pediatric intensive care specialist and met a bunch of other pediatric doctors who were really passionate about their work. And so they inspired me that I was like, you know what, I do want to become a doctor and I wanted to do research. And so that's where that's how I got to, I want to do both an MD and a PhD. A lot of what drove that were my experiences with hydrocephalus and wanting to help people with hydrocephalus, thinking both from as a doctor, as a physician, helping them clinically, and then also helping from the research side, because that's where, the future change happens.
Yeah. Figuring the stuff out. Yeah. In the research so that they can, pursue it. And wow. That's crazy. So it kind of did right. Sort of kind of did push you in that direction, which I'm glad it did. That's awesome. I mean, that's fantastic. So what, so I'm going to just throw this out there since there's for the live audience out there and anybody that comments on this later too, has anybody else out there chosen a career based on something that happened in your personal life, a personal challenge or a personal fascination with something? Let us know. We've got the ability to chat with you here, and you can always leave a comment later, but it'd be fun to hear your story too. So so as far as you, Jamie, hydrocephalus, it's no joke, it's no walk in the park some days, we both know that.
Yeah.
What day to day, what kind of stuff do you experience day to day? Is there anything that stands out that goes, oh yeah, hydrocephalus?
Well, for me and for a lot of people I know, headaches every day. Unfortunately, so I didn't kind of go into my hydrocephalus story very much.
Please do. Yeah, let's hear it.
Definitely. But I was diagnosed when I was 4 months old, had my first shunt placed when I was 20 months old. So there was a time in there that they were like, okay, will she outgrow this? Does she need a shunt? And so they monitored very closely for a while. And then finally the neurosurgeon, sat down with my parents and were like, she needs a shunt or she's going to have a brain injury. And so I had my first shunt placed. Everything was great. Then when I was 6 years old, I had my first shunt revision. Didn't think much of it, kept going. And then the end of 8th grade, I had another shunt malfunction and another shunt revision. And then 2.5 years later, which at that time, it was just 2.5 years later, well, I had another shunt revision during my junior year of high school, and it was the month before AP exams. I was really stressed out about it. I tried to talk my neurosurgeon out of doing the surgery or into waiting. And, that's when she told me, she's like, well, first of all, me and my mom were like, but she just had a shunt revision 2.5 years ago. Like, how could she already be needing another one? And that's when my neurosurgeon's like, well, 50% of shunts fail within 2 years of being put in. And so that was news to me. And then, here I am, 17 years old, AP exams coming up, and I was trying to talk her out. I was like, can we wait until after AP exams? I can't handle this right now. I need to focus on AP exams. And, she looked at me and she's like, Jamie, if we don't fix this, you're like, it's going to get worse and you're going to go into a coma and you're going to die.
Oh, see, that's bad. Like, we don't want, that's bad.
Yeah. So, some hard truths.
Man.
And so that was, the first time that it really hit me that, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And then kind of, go forward from there. I start college. I started having headaches, did MRI, didn't show anything. Like, my ventricles looked fine. And so I started seeing a neurologist, started being treated for migraines because my headaches kept getting worse and worse. And then it wasn't until I was in medical school that I met this awesome pediatric neurosurgeon, David Sandberg, who kind of took me under his care. And it was him when my migraines kept getting worse and nothing was working. It was like, well, maybe it is your shunt and maybe your ventricles don't enlarge anymore. And we kind of talked about some possible things to do. And I was like, no, not ready for that. I was in my third year of med school. I was like, I'll just deal with the headaches. But then my first year of graduate school, things kind of hit ahead. I couldn't lay down to sleep anymore. Like, they were waking me up at night. And I went to my neurologist and she's like, Jamie, this is your shunt. Like, this isn't migraines. And so she sent me to, like, that day to my neurosurgeon, ended up having exploratory shunt surgery and discovered that my entire shunt was malfunctioning and that my ventricles no longer enlarge with shunt malfunctions. Since then, so that was in 2015, I've had 13 more hydrocephalus related neurosurgery.
Oh my Lord. Since what?
Since 2015.
2015, you've had 13. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And, it's been a lot of, it's been a mixture of shunt malfunctions, trying, over drainage, trying different valves, under drainage, trying different valves. I had an endoscopic third ventriculostomy at one point to see if we could avoid a shunt, and that didn't work at all for me, unfortunately. And it's been quite a whirlwind. At one point, we clamped off my shunt to see if I still needed it, make sure I still needed it or how badly I needed it. And my intracranial pressure, so the pressure inside my head, went up to 100 in less than 2 hours, which for those of you who don't know, the normal is 5 to 15-ish, max 5. So that's really high. And I started residency a year and a half ago. So, a year or 2 years ago now.
All right.
So in June 2021, I started my neurology residency. That's a whole nother story.
We'll get to that, and we'll do that. Okay. We'll talk about that after the break. But yeah.
And 3 more surgeries during residency. So, but I have a great team, and
you do. It sounds like you'd have to. I mean, honestly, I'm so glad you found a good team, because that's half the battle sometimes, is finding the right person and the right team and the right neurosurgeon and neurologist and blah, 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 blah. There's so many that have to come together that having the right team is almost miraculous,
Yeah. So. And I mean, that's why I became a neurologist, because it's so hard to find a hydrocephalus expert as an adult.
Oh my gosh, you are not kidding.
Right.
Yeah. I still don't really have. I had a neurologist a few years ago, several years ago, when a series of surgeries started kind of hitting for me back in 2014. But yeah, and it was crazy. Like the neurologist I had at the time, or that I sort of had, I never really heard from her. I tried to reach out, and it was so it was kind of weird. So I just showed up at the hospital, said, "Fix me," just kind of showed up on their doorstep at one point and said, "Well, what are you going to do with me now?"
Sometimes you have to.
Sometimes you do. It's up to you, man. It's you live in your body, not them. So they don't know what, and we are so ridiculously tolerant to pain that it doesn't look like we are in this awful, terrible pain because we've been in it for so long. We can cope. So they don't look at us and go, "Oh my God, they're an emergency. We gotta do this." So we have to be our own voice sometimes, right?
Yeah, and also finding those healthcare providers, finding those doctors who can recognize. That was one of the amazing things about my neurologist in Houston. I had her for 10 years, so she could look at me and say, "Oh, you don't look like it's your shunt," or "You look like it's your shunt."
Yeah. And be able to recognize that's huge.
Yeah.
Man.
And my doctors here, like, they, believing in me and believing me when I say that I'm in pain, and saying, "Okay, let's do something about it." It's huge. That
is huge, and that's I hate to say it, but it's kind of rare. Because it's kind of rare, because I'm not trying to minimize doctors. Neither of us would be here if it weren't for good surgeons and doctors, but sometimes they have a little bit of an inflated sense of what they know and what they can do and what they know versus what you know, and sometimes it's hard for them to just step back and listen to you and listen to the patient, listen to their story, and maybe learn something from that, that might help them provide the care they need to, because they only learn so much in med school and their residencies and all that stuff. Then real life starts, right? So, yeah.
Right. And I mean, and I will say from, the physician perspective, it is really hard with time limits and, visit length and everything. As much as I want to delve into everybody's life story, you still have to get these specific pieces of information, and you're always having to think about okay, the next patient's coming in 10 minutes, what do I but finding those people who have kind of perfected the art of managing that time limit, but it's also huge. Listening is huge.
Very, very, very valuable, though.
Yes, and those are the people I'm learning from. I'm trying my best to learn from. So,
man, that's awesome. Keep learning. That's amazing. I tell you what, I hate to do this, but we are already at a break. So I know time flies when you're having fun. So we're going to go to a commercial, but we're on the other side of the commercial. Stay tuned, everybody. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to be talking. It's obviously having hydrocephalus and, going through the schooling and everything that Jamie did. It's tough. It's crazy, especially, for anybody, but especially somebody with hydrocephalus. So we're going to talk about some of that on the other side. And we're going to say see you in a minute to Jamie here. If I can find my cursor. There we go. Okay. We'll see you in just a second. Thank you. And here we go. We're going to go to a break, and then we will see you on the other side. everybody. And welcome back, Jamie. Here we go. I'm going to bring her back. There's the button. There we go. Hello. All right. Cool. Well, this has been this first segment. I'm telling you, they fly by, and it's what's the old thing? It's time flies when you're having fun, right? So here we go.
Exactly.
So I just throwing this out there. My mind is still kind of exploding from your MD PhD thing. How did I went to a couple of years of college and then said, nope, I'm done. So that is impressive to me. How in the world, like, there's so many difficult concepts and retaining massive amounts of information and learning from all these different teachers that, come on, let's be real, they're not all created equal, right? Some are easier to learn from than others, right? So no matter what level of education. So how did you do that? Like, adaptability has got to be part of it, but what did you do to be able to learn all that information and retain it?
Well, thankfully, during especially middle school was when I kind of started really focusing on like learning styles and how I learn. And thankfully I had one of my teachers did this great segment on like how the brain works and how memory works and how we learn and retain information. And so I really became focused on kind of how I learn, and because that was when I really started focusing on, I want to do well in school, and I really want to succeed in this. And so I started focusing on, how can I best retain information and how can I best learn this? And I became probably a little too studious, even like, it's bad when your counselors and parents are like, Jamie, take a break. Like, but I learned, I figured out my learning style, and I figured out how to stay organized, and I like had a calendar that I wrote everything in, and I would put in due dates, and I would say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, but this is when I need to start this project, and this is when I want to be done with it by, so that I have time before the due date, just in case anything comes up. And thankfully, going into high school, I did have, struggle with taking more time on tests than other people.
Sure.
And, taking more time on tests, but then also, I don't know what they're up to now, but like I did high school in the time of PowerPoint. Like, I did all my education in the time of PowerPoint. And I would always be kind of slowing the class down because I was like trying to write everything down. And I like my working memory or, my memory, I was like, I'd look up, try to go write it down and be like, oh shoot, what did it say? And so, thankfully I had great teachers who saw that, saw where I was struggling and saw that I really cared. And so they worked with me to like, they'd give me printouts of the PowerPoint ahead of time, or, let me come in after school to like finish my test. Or, so I didn't have official accommodations, but I kind of had these unofficial accommodations, thanks to these amazing teachers. And then going into undergrad, I did have official accommodations because everything has to be official in college.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. But thankfully, we had a great disability services office, and the manager, like the person who ran the office, was great. Like, she saw hydrocephalus and she kind of immediately was like, okay, these are the things that we'll probably need.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was
nice.
I was so fortunate that like I didn't, I had to do some, like, show some medical records and stuff for what I was requesting accommodations for, but I didn't have to like compile my life story and my life history to, get what I needed. And then going on to medical school, I during my first 3 years of medical school, I actually didn't have any accommodations. I was I'd kind of felt like I'd figured out what I needed. I have enough time on exams. Like I can do this without accommodations. Well, then graduate school hit, and I had that, all those surgeries. So I had a total of 11 neurosurgeries during graduate school. And the way it works for those who aren't familiar with MD PhD programs. So I did my first 3 years of medical school, and then I joined a lab to do research for my PhD. And then after my PhD, I went back to my 4th year of medical school. So during my PhD years, so I ended up spending 6 years on my PhD. A lot of that because of, the 11 surgeries and issues.
Sure.
And thankfully, I got, and it was a few years in, I finally found the right person in our disability services office. I think it was like the Office of Diversity and Disability Services or something, or I don't know. It had an encompassing name. I finally found the right person, and they were able to set me up with accommodations that were really helpful. And, that's, I think, one of the nice things. I went to, of course, like state schools for all of my education. And the funding sources, the funding resources are different. I don't know all the details in it, but I know that there are some differences. And so they were able to, at one point for a couple of years, I even had an assistant in the lab.
Oh, nice.
Because I wasn't getting experiments done because I kept having to leave for doctor's appointments or hospitalizations and surgeries and stuff. And so they provided me, they paid for an assistant to a research assistant to help me, or research technician to help me get my experiments done.
That's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. It's, and that's, when I'm talking to people about disability services, you'd be amazed some of the things that are available. It's finding the right people, and also having doctors who support you and who will fill out the paperwork and who will make calls if necessary, and put their phone number on the paperwork and say, here, call, because they don't even necessarily want to call the person, but just seeing that they care that much that they're willing to talk to me outside of their hours, that says a lot.
That's huge.
And then going on to residency, it's a very different type of training, but I have been working with them for to do some accommodations as well. So that's one of my big pieces of advice with invisible conditions, because I think can be especially hard because you can't see it. And those teachers who saw that I was struggling, that's amazing. And they were willing to help. And so, it's hard to reach out for help. And
but sometimes you have to be your own best advocate.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because you might not have a teacher that is as intuitive as the ones that you had, especially nowadays good Lord, don't get me started. But it's, it's not like it was when I was in school. It's not the same. And there's so many different focuses now in the classroom. You have to stand up and be your own best advocate, especially in college. The classes sometimes are so huge and you can almost blend into the background sometimes.
Oh yeah. Because when there's hundreds of people, and that's why they have to have official accommodations, because you can't have, hundreds of people approaching the professor after class, asking for things. And so, finding those resources and finding them early are other, kind of important steps, for residency. As for those of you who aren't familiar, the way residency works is during your last year of medical school, you apply and interview to like programs all over the country, to multiple different programs. And then there's this very confusing ranking process. And then you're matched with a program. And so there's something called Match Day in March. And so it's a huge deal for people in medical school, by the way.
Yeah.
So if you ever hear somebody talking about Match Day, like, be in awe. Be happy for them.
Even if you don't know what it is, just be excited. Yeah.
Be excited for them, yes. But it's this, huge thing. And the University of Washington, which is where I'm at now for residency, was the top of my list. And so, you don't know where you're going to end up. But as soon as Match Day happened and I found out where I was going, and we celebrated, and, I got my voice and everything. And so we celebrated, found out where I was going. Like the next week, I was contacting the Disability Services Office about, like, okay, what do I need to do for accommodations? Like, what paperwork do you need? So definitely start early.
Well, and you had done that because you had done it before. So you kind of knew you knew the nightmare it would be if you didn't, and that you had to do it early. And that's smart too, so yeah, no, that's amazing. And so I just want to throw this out there. Just watching you on Instagram for the last year and learning about you and seeing some crazy videos. You put out some crazy stuff recently, man. It's been fun to watch. My wife and kids had to be there like, nope. But I was glued to the screen. I was like, whoa. But all of this stuff, maybe we could talk about that in the next segment because it was kind of funny. But it was crazy to listen to you talk during that whole thing. But I mean, let's not mix words here. Your accomplishments are impressive. I mean, you have come so far, and it's impressive. That's the only word I can think of is to say. And so, congratulations on everything that you've accomplished. What has been, if you can pinpoint it, what has been the hardest thing that you have accomplished through all of this so far? That you're like, oh man, I'm so proud of this,
I would have to say it was, I think it was definitely my PhD in graduate school.
Thanks.
There's kind of like this little bit of friendly or not so friendly rivalry between like what's harder, medical school or graduate school. Everybody's different. Everybody thinks differently. Everybody learns differently. But graduate school was really challenging because it wasn't just here, memorize stuff. Memorize it, learn this process, learn these differential diagnoses, or think about these differential diagnoses after learning all about this pathology or disease. Graduate school, the way I describe it to people, is it's kind of like if somebody were to say, okay, you're in graduate school, welcome, you're going to have an exam in X number of weeks. Here's the broad topic, but we aren't going to tell you what to study or what to read. Or, like it's out there, but you got to figure it out on your own. And then as you get farther in graduate school, they don't even give you the question. Or, you come up with your own question, and then they're like, okay, now teach it to us. Figure it out. And then teach us how, the answer to this question. And so, yeah,
wow.
it's
See, part of that would be kind of cool, but part of it would be terrifying.
It
Right?
definitely
Because you're
is.
supposed to be the expert now, you know?
Yeah, that's a great explanation for it because, especially because there are like some stepping stones in graduate school, and preparing for those and preparing for having to, like, first of all defend what I was going to do my PhD on, and then defending my PhD thesis. It can be really wonderful for, because you get to like deep dive into this topic and you get to where you know more about it than most of the world, like most people in the world, because you've, I call it the rabbit hole of PubMed, like going through the literature, and you find one paper and that leads you to another paper and another paper, and doing experiments, figuring things out that people like had never learned before, like that we answering questions that haven't been answered before. Is really cool, but it's also really, really challenging.
Well, sure, because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
That's the hardest part. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing, right? So,
yes.
My Lord, that's crazy. Well, I have another question I want to ask you, but I don't. But I want to do it on the other side of the break. So,
okay.
So give us just a minute here. I'm going to take you out of here for a second, and we'll come back in just a couple minutes. We'll be right back, Jamie. Oh my gosh, yeah, I can't wait to ask her more questions, but we got to take another break, and we will see you here in just a second as soon as I find the right thing. Here we go. All right, we'll see you in a minute. Man, I can't believe we're already in the last part of the last segment. This has been so fun, but I feel like we run out of time so fast.
Yes.
So, but I wanted to, there was something, I'm trying to remember what it was. With multiple brain surgeries, I have a joke that I always tell people. It's like, the memory is the second thing to go, And they say, oh, what's the first? I said, I don't know. I forgot that years ago. Because it's true, right? You're trying to remember something and you go, wait, what was that? Oh, yeah. So let me think. I have stuff written down, so that's even worse. So are there, with all of that stuff, like going through all that school, going through all that difficulty, going through all that stuff, was there like one moment that was like, aha, light bulb moment where you wanted to, that you knew that this is what you wanted to do? Was there any kind of moment like that, or was it just kind of progression?
Well, deciding to become a doctor, there was, I definitely have this light bulb moment. which, full disclosure, is kind of funny. I was in the bathroom.
Sure, why not?
I was in the bathroom at school, and I was just like, doctors are just people who've read different books.
There
And
you go. Okay.
And, it was just this realization that, I've put them on this pedestal my entire life because growing up, I didn't know anybody who was a doctor. I have no doctors in my family, and they were the other people,
Yeah.
and they were amazing, and I looked up to them, and I, appreciated their work, but I didn't relate to them. And so thankfully, getting to know some doctors through through the research fellowship my junior year of college, I got to meet some doctors and go to lunch with them and house sit for them and see that they're real people and that we're all human and that I could do that too. And so there was very much that epiphany moment that I can do this.
Awesome.
And then, the progression of okay, what kind of doctor I want to be. Right. It changed a lot over the years. Going into medical school, I was thinking maybe neonatology, which are kind of the neonatal intensive care unit or NICU doctors who take care of the tiny preemie babies, or pediatric neurology was kind of the two things I was thinking about. And for, a little while, I thought about pediatric neurosurgery. And then what really made me decide on doing adult neurology, because I was thinking about this pediatric world, the kid world, for so much of that time.
Yeah.
And then during medical school, especially during my third year, I decided to become more public on social media and to tell my story on social media. I made an active decision that I'm going to make my profiles public. I'm going to make my posts public. I'm going to share this journey with others. And a lot of it is I wanted to share with other people with hydrocephalus and invisible illness and chronic medical conditions. And, a lot of that being because I wanted new parents of children with hydrocephalus who are just diagnosed to see my posts and see hey, she's going to be a doctor. And to have that hope.
Yes.
And part of that was I met a lot of amazing people, and people started reaching out to me, and a lot of young adults with hydrocephalus started reaching out to me saying, my pediatric neurosurgeon can't take care of me anymore, and I can't find an adult neurosurgeon. I can't find an adult specialist to manage my hydrocephalus or manage my shunt. And, around that same time, actually at the very beginning of medical school, I started volunteering with the Hydrocephalus Association. Nice. And I became a community network leader with them. And so I met people, including Dr. Mike Williams, who is here at University of Washington, who is a neurologist that specializes in patients who are transitioning care from pediatric to adult with congenital hydrocephalus.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. What are the odds, right? That you would, right? Oh.
Well, so that's part of the reason I picked the University of Washington. Okay. And, meeting, getting to know him and meeting him and, hearing about him and what he does was a large part of the reason that I was okay, I can take care of patients with hydrocephalus as an adult neurologist.
There you go.
I can help this population that's struggling to find care. So,
and filling a gap that's needing to be filled because people were struggling to find that. So yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I love that because yeah, that's being very selfless in your mission too. So it's like what's lacking, and I'm going to just fill that gap, which is amazing. But you said a word a little bit ago. You kind of just blew right past it, but I'm gonna ask you about it because hope is what we're all about here. I firmly believe that without hope, you're done. You're dead in the water already. No matter what you're going through, whether you've gone through, you know, multiple brain surgeries or you're just having a bad day, if you don't have hope, you're done. How do you, in the midst of everything that you've gone through, everything you go through on a daily basis, how do you find hope day to day?
there's, I think it's thankfully, my experience that I've met so many amazing doctors and scientists who are dedicated to helping people with, well, for me, a big part of my health issues is hydrocephalus.
Mhm.
And so getting to meet scientists who have dedicated their life's work to helping people with hydrocephalus and advancing care for patients with hydrocephalus. That gives me so much hope that, like right now, the treatment options we have are like, I mean, they keep me alive. They keep us alive.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sure. They keep you breathing.
Yes, they keep me alive. But, that there's so many, that there's people who are so smart who have dedicated themselves to coming up with better treatments that more than just keep us alive.
Yeah.
And, knowing doctors who are so dedicated to patients and getting to learn from them. And, I guess it's not like that gives me hope that I can do what they do one day.
Nice.
And be a part of that change.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I love that. And I know that you're involved with the Hydrocephalus Association, which I love. We've seen on Instagram that you've done the Hydro Walk, right? What other? I mean, is there anything in the last 2-3 minutes here that we could get out there that you would like to get out there to encourage people to get involved with a certain organization or any kind of efforts that are out there if they're wanting to learn more about hydrocephalus or anything like that?
Well, I mean, as you said, I definitely encourage people to check out the Hydrocephalus Association and their website. And then if you're looking for support, they have amazing support. Like they have an amazing community network. Like it's a network of groups for individuals affected by hydrocephalus, whether you have hydrocephalus or you're a parent or caregiver of somebody with hydrocephalus. They have, I lead a community network, or I'm it's in the baby stages, but I'm working on another community network here in Seattle, and I started the community network in Houston. Oh gosh,
Wow.
11 years ago. And thankfully it's still thriving thanks to their amazing new community network leaders. So there's a whole network of people. And then they also have like other support, volunteers who are there to take phone calls and to connect with you. So, my kind of tagline for a lot of things is you aren't alone. And, you aren't alone in what you're going through. And so, reach out, and feel free to reach out to me.
How would people do that?
So as I said, I'm public on social media. So on Instagram and Twitter, I am shunted MD PhD. And I also, and my name is on my Twitter and my Instagram page, Jamie Wright. And then on Facebook, I have a page, Jamie Wright, MD PhD.
Nice. That's awesome. I mean, that's how I found out about you. I'm so thankful you did put everything out there for the public, because that's the only reason I found you, or I think my wife actually found you on Instagram and said, check this out. You're never going to believe this. Look at it. So I am thankful as well that you decided to, because that's, with people in that industry, it's not very common for them to have a public profile or to have a profile on social media at all. So they usually like to kind of, not do that. So yeah. Well, oh my Lord. I think, is there anything, any like last minute, like 30 seconds or less kind of thing that you want to say for anybody that's struggling, that needs help? What would you tell them?
Really, as I said, you aren't alone. There are, people out there who care and that want to help. And there's even doctors out there that care and want to help.
Yes.
And, reach out, if not to a family friend, to keep looking for that doctor who's out there to help you. And you've got people backing you.
Not alone. That's right. Oh my gosh. Jamie, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so grateful that you agreed to do this, and that we connected, and this has been so amazing. We got to do this again, because I know there's stuff that we wanted to talk about that we never got to. So I'm saying it now. We're probably going to do this again just to get to some of the other stuff. But thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So, oh my gosh. All right. I'm almost out of time, but I want to say, anybody that I love what we're doing here. And I love like having guests like Jamie. If you, like me, know what we're doing, reach out as an advertiser, as a guest, anything. We'd love to talk to you. Next time, Wendy Watson on Friday. She's awesome. She is going to share her own story and her own challenges and some of the inspiration that she found to help her through. So have an amazing day, and we will see you on Friday.